Hey, welcome to Get the Balance Right, a podcast for creative entrepreneurs and agency owners looking to grow their business in a healthy, sustainable way. I'm Heather Zeitzwolf, CPA. I serve this community with coaching, profit advising, and virtual CFO services. Please join me as I talk with leaders in digital media, branding, advertising, design, marketing, and SEO. Hey there, welcome to my podcast. This is Heather. My guest today is Nicole Choman, the CEO of OAKwave, a marketing strategy shop out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Nicole has been in marketing strategies for 20 years, and for 15 of those, she spent specializing in B2B. OAKwave prides themselves on offering the only objective marketing strategy available, simply because there's no carrot on a stick or incentive to sell execution services. According to Nicole, strategy is a bit of a misnomer in today's market because everyone seems to claim they're a strategist. However, few are actually good at it. Nicole defines strategy as the actionable route to get you from where you are to where you want to be, and OAKwave strategies are the living embodiment of that definition. I think you're really going to enjoy this show today. Now, here's my conversation with Nicole. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
For people that are unaware of you or OAKwave, can you just tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you got into working in market strategy?
When I originally started my career, there was a lot of action with little planning. I kind of grew up in the birth of the internet, right? So this was an era in which we built websites without really thinking about what they were going to do. It was Me Too technology. You know, we have to have a website because everybody else has one. Similarly, as Google launched their AdWords product, it became we have to advertise because that's where you advertise. And what I noticed over time was there was just this tremendous loss of revenue out the door because they're spending in the wrong area or they just have no reason behind what they're doing. So I fell in love with helping people find the reason why they're doing something. So everything, we recommend from a marketing standpoint, it's purpose driven because I don't believe in Me Too technology or Me Too marketing. It should have a purpose and always keep the target market in mind. And that was a big market opportunity I've always seen. So I built my team over time at another agency. And once that agency and I had a very amicable split, we went off into our own wing, which became OAKwave.
Well, and explain to us, what does OAKwave mean?
So OAKwave is interesting. We believe in the marriage of solid foundation and the innovation and creativity, right? So oak is your rock solid foundation. That's the stone upon which your organization is built, the foundation. And then wave is about the new innovative creativity that brings new markets to you or expands your available serviceable market. So we marry those two together. Solid analysis and outlandish creativity to bring realistic innovation. Oak and wave.
That's cool. So 20 years in the business. Wow, that's a really long time. I mean, how did you get into this in the beginning? Did you study marketing in college or advertising? How did that just come about?
So I actually started my career. I've always been a nerd. My father sat me down when I was 10 years old to format a computer at the dining room table. It took us about 17 hours over 2 days. And that was the late 80s, I believe. So it became a technology thing that I was helpless to fight technology. It was part of my life from a very young age. So, but I loved English. So in school, I studied English at first, but tech was still kind of my driver. I messed around with websites on the side as that technology evolved a bit and that kind of thing. And what I discovered over time was that marketing was really the marriage of communications and English, which I love, as well as technology. It's that sweet spot that has to join them both together.
We're in such a weird time right now with the whole COVID and the recession, and it's just a strange time. It seems like marketing is it's interesting to see like different commercials now, like they have like people using Zoom within a commercial, and it's just a strange time, it seems like, for marketing. Do you see like any weird differences in how you're going to have to strategize now for companies?
So the biggest challenge for me, I'm probably like ready to pull my hair out at this point, because for a strategist to not be able to understand where the market's going to be in 6 months is a very challenging situation to be in. I'm grateful that we are a lot further today than we were 3 months ago. 3 months ago, it was utter chaos. I wasn't taking any clients at the time because I didn't know what was going to happen in a month. Let alone anything else. But now I think we've entered a little bit of a rebuilding period and that kind of thing, and kind of recuperating from our losses. So yes, do I have to refine? Absolutely. But this is the kind of refinement I was looking for. I like to tell people I'm a wartime strategist, and we are at war right now. So it fits kind of nicely. I work well with innovation, and this is the time that we need to actually be innovative. We've been talking about it for 5 years, 10 years, or however long it's been a buzzword, but now it actually matters.
If you were to work with something like a restaurant that's had, numerous challenges through this whole thing, what would you need to know about that type of a client to really have an impactful strategy for them?
To be honest with you, any impactful strategy has to be driven by the truth. And so few organizations or clients are willing to just kind of spit that out there. But the honest, unshielded, unsugar-coated truth is the only thing that will actually get you to an effective strategy. So the first thing I would ask a small business owner or a restaurateur right now would be, so how bad is it? How long do we have? Which is the tough question. And then from there, it's okay, where do you want to be? What do you utterly hate? And where do you actually want this? What do you want this to look like in 5 years? Working out that vision statement is one of the hardest things I do with people, because they discover either they don't know where they want to be in 5 years, or, it doesn't align with where they've been leading their organization. So if you're a restaurateur and you decide that in 5 years, you want to have 7 locations, but you've really been investing a lot in your single location, then chances are you haven't been thinking about the long term.
So the strategies that you're doing, then you're not just thinking about the short term, you're actually looking at a long-term plan for these people?
Yes. So they're a 3-year roadmap. So I go out 36 months from the day of, delivery to plan out that actionable course for 3 years.
So that must be challenging too, with not knowing like what the future is going to have, like not only COVID, but then what kind of technology, like Instagram might be hot, but then it becomes like TikTok or whatever it is. Does your strategies implement like what platforms you're going to use, or is that not part of what you design?
Sure. So that channels are far less important from a marketing standpoint, right? I've been in marketing long enough to see the birth and death of so many channels. It's not even funny. Like what's popular right now, TikTok, for example, is insanely popular right now. It will most likely be dead in 2 years, like the way of Vine. We cycle through these things constantly. Now, I will say that I provide a 36-month roadmap, which does apply to channels as well. So I recommend channels, but they're not set in stone, because if the market changes, you have to adapt. I can't give you a rock solid, unchangeable thing for 36 months, because that'd be foolish as anything.
When a client comes to you, does their budget kind of drive the type of strategy that you're going to give to them?
I look at budget as my primary constraint. So if you come to me and you say, I have $2.5 million that I need to invest in my marketing over the next 3 years, I know what type of strategy I have to recommend to you. But if you come to me and say, I have $50,000 over the next 3 years that I need to invest in my marketing, that changes the scope a lot. For my deliverable, for my purposes, it doesn't change what I deliver, but it changes the contents therein, in that I'm not going to recommend to a $50,000 budget that you should run a Super Bowl commercial, because it's just not going to work.
Have you ever recommended a Super Bowl commercial to anyone?
No, I haven't, because I have specialized in B2B for a while, which not really aligned with the Super Bowl market. But here's hoping one day.
Yeah, that seems like the holy grail, I guess, of advertising, right? Hey there, this is Heather. Besides being a podcast host, I'm also a CPA and profit advisor. I help creative agencies grow in a sustainable manner. Right now, I'm offering a complimentary healthcare check of your business. So if you go down to the show notes, you'll see a link and you can sign up. All right, now back to the show. With strategies, how do you measure how effective it is? And do you have kind of some examples of maybe how you've had to do this with clients?
I have a key point that I make to people as soon as I meet them in general, which is your revenue is my only KPI, because I don't care about anything else. Nothing else matters at the end of the day. Is the amount of website traffic I bring you over the next 3 months going to save your business? Is it going to keep you from going under? Is it going to keep you from having to fire an employee? No. The only thing that's going to change that is your revenue. Since all the strategies are growth strategies, then the revenue is the only thing that actually matters to us. And notice I'm saying revenue, not profits, because I don't have any control over operations, but I do have control over how much revenue you generate from a marketing standpoint. So that's really how we measure effectiveness of strategy. And I do that year over year. So just measure, say, March's revenue over last March's in order to measure the effectiveness of the strategy we just implemented.
If you're doing the strategy, but somebody else is implementing that, it seems like then you're kind of giving the control over to somebody else to execute that. Is to sometimes get lost in translation where you had a really great strategy, but somehow it just didn't get executed correctly?
I'm going to call it a profit eater for my business. And that is that I can't let these things go out into the wild. So I have a tendency to watch my clients, even after they're not an active client anymore, to make sure that they're doing the right thing. And we'll kind of poke them if they are deviating from the original game plan. Now, that being said, we go through kind of great pains to step-by-step blueprint what they have to do. So, and we consider either their future partners or their internal staff members, or even if, they're working with another agency. I've onboarded other agencies before in the sense that I told them how to execute it. So it's something that does require a little bit of babysitting, but we also, with a great many of our clients, offer what we call CMO as on demand, which becomes like we're that CMO that they can call up, that they don't have to keep on staff. So we can make the decisions and make sure everybody's doing their jobs right.
Okay. And so the CMO, that's something that is like an ongoing thing throughout the year. Do you just touch in with the client maybe quarterly, or how does that work exactly?
So we don't believe in retainer agreements. We believe retainer agreements benefit the agency and not the client. That's just from our perspective, and we feel it makes agencies a little bit lazy. So generally, it's a case-by-case basis. So if you have a big project you're looking to do, you have this strategy and you're implementing it, and you want somebody to oversee it, then we would have to gauge how much manpower is needed to oversee that in order to quote it for you. But it would just be an hourly quote, nothing more complicated than that.
Does market research come into play at all with market strategies?
Market research is probably 15% of my costs each month. In the subscription models and everything else, we pay data analysts sometimes, but yes, absolutely. If we did not do market research, we would have an ill-informed marketing strategy. So there's two flavors for that. For us, we look at the industry research, which would be, where our subscription model comes in, whether it be Hoovers and D&B or, Global Data Insights or IBIS World Reports or any of those kind of tools. And then we also have the market studies side, which is where we do surveys and polls through Qualtrics on target consumers or target buyers or even your existing customers.
Hey there, this is Heather. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. And if you are, if you wouldn't mind, please hit the subscribe button now. That way you'll never miss an episode. All right, now back to the podcast. So for a market strategy, when you deliver this to the client, is it a big giant written report that then how does it work? Like, what is the deliverable that you bring to them?
Sure. So this is where you catch my heart off guard because I love these things so much. I put we use this paper that is like extra weighted paper. It's 28-pound shiny white paper and everything else. But basically, it is 100 to 150 page report that is word for word custom written every single time. We don't use any pre-canned template or copyrighted information. Everything is original. And it is presented 99% of the time, unless COVID happens, it's presented in person. We do not do slide decks or anything. What we do is talk through the entire manual with our clients when we present it. So once you kind of pay us, we do an onboarding and discovery. We go into a hole for, quite a few weeks, and then we do a check-in to kind of gauge your reception on some things. And then we go back to our hole for a couple of weeks, and then we produce that document. But yes, it is printed and bound every time, and we present it in person.
Oh, I love that. I'm nerdy about that kind of stuff too. When you're talking about that,
I have two binding machines in my office, and we have the purple coils that match our logo. So we're a little bit nerdy about it for sure.
That's cool. Wow. And it's just so that I can kind of wrap my head around it. So for somebody that wants to do a market strategy and work with you, what type of revenue are they generally generating to even think about this?
So we don't work at all like other agencies do. So to get to the heart of your question a little bit more clearly, our strategies start around 9,000 and can go up to about 18,000. It all depends on the complexity of the business and the level of need. And the reason I bypassed your question on that is because we work with startups that have zero revenue. We worked with everybody from startups to 110-year-old companies. So, and any range in between. So revenue is usually not my biggest indicator. It's just, are you able to make that kind of investment in your strategy?
Are startups, do they tend to be more flexible about their strategies than these older companies? Or what are the ones that you kind of feel like you have the most creativity with?
So honestly, the startups are harder to work with in general, because startups have their own ideas of what should be done. And a lot of times, and this isn't all the time by any stretch, but a lot of times the helm is, led by a younger person who might be a little bit idealistic or hasn't had vetted caution yet. Whereas an older organization has their own political and cultural issues that may buck up resistance. Who I like working with, and we have the most success with, are organizations that want to change and want to grow. If you want to change and want to grow, we have total creativity and flexibility because we will give you the path to do that. But without a desire for those two things, those are prerequisites for working with a client now. So.
Wow. And do you see any trends that are like, obviously print is like not as big as it used to be, but what are some of the marketing trends that you see coming in the next few years?
Sure. So I actually wrote a book on this that I published in January called Bad Marketing. But the point of this is that we are, as a culture, we are now becoming desensitized to advertising and marketing in general. It just doesn't matter. None of it matters as much as it used to. But somewhere along the way, we kind of lost our way, right? If you zoom back about 60, 70 years, you're going to see marketing messages that had to actually say something. They had to mean something. And we lost that with the kind of boom and birth of the internet, which I'm not knocking. I love technology, but it changed the way we marketed. And we started caring about clicks and hits and website traffic and likes more than we cared about the actual substance anymore. It seems, especially in light of COVID, people have begun focusing again on the quality of that message. Some great campaigns that have come out recently. Domino's campaign was absolutely fabulous. It was amazing. They showed just Zoom videos. Like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, just Zoom videos over and over that had powerful statements in them. Another one is BB&T. The ad that they put out, well, it's Truist now with that merger, but they put out an ad right after COVID that literally made me cry. Like, that's how powerful that ad was. So I really like the back to the genuine message. It's hard to shortcut that, though, and it's impossible to fake it. So it's an interesting trend, but I think it's one that's going to continue to bloom.
And, we live in this age of authenticity, too. So it seems like that would ring truer for people with a truer message in there. Yeah. And let's talk about a little bit about your book. So where's this book available?
It's on Amazon. So you can get it if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can get it for free with the Kindle Unlimited plan. And then you can get the print copy for an expensive $20. And I apologize, it's so much. It's actually because it's a full color book. That's what the minimum that Amazon will charge for it. So,
wow, how long did it take you to write this book?
4 months.
Oh, okay.
I write a lot. Well, these strategies are, like I said, they're 100 to 150 pages, and we do about one of these every month, so. So, writing is something I have carpal tunnel.
And do you see any types of strategies that you feel are going to sunset or go away pretty soon that are maybe kind of a tired thing or maybe just certain things that you're just so sick of seeing?
Sure. The one thing that I am just over is this division between sales and marketing. Especially for B2B, which again, that's kind of where my heart is, but there's no difference. There really isn't. So the textbook definition of marketing is one to many versus sales, which is one to one. But both are still the same thing, which is persuading your buyer to choose you. And it's the same exact message, just at different scales. So like this historical divide between marketing and sales has always really bugged me because it's ineffective and inefficient. The more that we can kind of bring those together into the unicorn marketer, which there was a report published yesterday by the American Association of Advertising that surveyed a bunch of people through Accenture about, that kind of unicorn marketer that's supposed to have sales skills and marketing skills. And there's validity there because the more we can bring those persuasive skills together, the more effective our messaging and marketing will be.
Oh, wow. And if somebody wanted to get into marketing strategies, what would you recommend? How do they go about that? I mean, is there something they should study besides, going to school and studying marketing? How do they get into this type of business?
Sure. I mean, the one component, the unteachable, the thing you have to be born with is drive. And if you do not have drive, if you're not the one that always sees the opportunity, amongst the sea of doom, you have to always see the opportunity. If you do that, then you have that born with skill. From there, it's like I studied Sun Tzu, I studied Churchill, I studied every great strategist that's ever I could find, actually. And of course, I've been in marketing for so long, and I love agencies. Because it keeps you fresh, it keeps you on your toes. So combining those three things really, I think, is what made me adept at it.
Wow. Thank you. Nicole, thank you so much. This has been really eye-opening. I've learned a whole lot from this conversation. Well, thanks so much for being on my show.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much for having me. It was I enjoyed it for sure.
Hey, this is Heather. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you found value in the show, I'd really appreciate it if you gave me a rating on iTunes, or just simply tell a friend about it. And if you're interested in learning more about my profit advising and coaching, please set up a discovery call by using the link in the show notes. All right, thanks so much and see you next time.